And we are live. What's going on, YouTube Live? It's your boy, Billy Rowe. Raymond, what's up, brother? I see you, the first one in tonight. Power to you, my brother. It's your boy, Billy Rowe, coming to you. Today is Wednesday. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. If it is Wednesday, you should already know what that means. It's time for the Wednesday word. That's Wednesday word. Jumping straight into it. Tonight's topic is the build-up. Ooh, the build-up. As always, with every topic, I like to say what I mean by the topic. And with the buildup, it's very similar to the format of a movie or a book that you may be reading. In the beginning, you start off, they kind of introduce everybody, and they build the story up until they get to the climax. And at the climax, something happens, whether they fall in love or they win, they get a problem solved or whatever it may be. At the climax, something happens, and then the story starts to go down towards the conclusion. And so when I started thinking about this buildup, what I was really thinking about was the areas in our life in our lives where we feel like things kind of happen instantaneously because we're not aware of the buildup, but really there is nothing that happens instantaneously for us. Really, things are happening kind of on this continual path as we grow and grow and grow and we grow. And then all of a sudden we get to this tipping point. And when we get to this tipping point, if it's a good thing, we find success. If it's a bad thing, we find not necessarily, I don't want to say failure, but we find that we have to pay a cost when we get to the tipping point and we fall in the wrong direction. So this is what I mean by the buildup. We reach our buildups, whether they are positive or negative. And I'm going to talk tonight in both spectrums, both the positive and the negative, when we reach these tipping points, or we reach this buildup to where at some point something is going to happen. And so hopefully in your life at this point in my age, I'm really hoping that a lot of my buildups are in a positive area. However, I do know that I still have some areas that are building up negatively. And as I provide these tools that I have come up with tonight, hopefully you can apply them and I can apply them as well. So just realize, just because we're on the first row and I'm speaking, it does not mean that I have perfected any specific area that I am speaking in regards to. So I hope you guys are ready for tonight. I got about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different tools that I want to share with you this evening on the build-up. Feel free to engage if you guys have something you want to say or a tool that you use to deal with or rectify buildup in your life, or encourage buildup if it's something that's positive. I'm happy to hear what you guys have to say and also bring that into the conversation. So let's get straight into it. The buildup. The very first tool that I came up with when I started thinking about the buildup is really, how does buildup take place? Where does it come from? And so the first tool is that buildup requires time. Now, for the negative things, it requires time. Sometimes it may feel, like I said, it may feel instantaneous, but it requires time. And the longer something that is negative in your life is allowed to have time and space, just like a bacteria, it grows, it populates, and then all of a sudden, you got issues because the bacteria is out of control that now have to be addressed, whether it maybe medically has to be addressed or emotionally has to be addressed. And so it takes time. And if you're allowing that time to take place and not resolving or not addressing the issue, that's all that it's going to take, is that time to build up until you get to that tipping point where you're going to fall either towards the positive or the negative. The other side, being on the positive side, being that it takes time, is time in this sense for me is it takes patience. Having the patience to allow the things that you're working towards to build up. I always like to liken anything that requires the build up to like exercise. When you go into the gym for the first time, I remember when I went to the gym for the first time. Well, let's back that up. I went to the gym Monday. And when I went to the gym on Monday, my body was very tired. The muscles were very weak because I haven't been in the gym working out consistently. So it's funny that it takes a lot of time to build up this strength, but it doesn't take a lot of time to lose it for your muscles to go into atrophy from lack of being worked out. So from the positive side, realize it takes time. And so you can't start off like, if you left off with 2 plates, you can't just after a month go back and be like, I'm gonna just start lifting 2 plates again. No, it's going to take time, and it's going to take that build up until you get to the point where you're at the tipping point where it's something positive and you can successfully lift 2 plates. So that's the first tool. Build up is going to take time, whether it's positive or negative, it's going to take time. It's very rare that an apple is dropped in the drain and then now all of a sudden you have a clog. Normally what happens is over time that drain gets clogged and clogged and closed and closed. And then you find yourself trying to pour a gallon of Drano down it, trying to unclog the drain. So that's the first tool. The second tool that I came up with was realize that our entire life is one continual compounding event. Man, that's a pretty long, lengthy, wordy tool, but that was really the only way that I could say it. Our life is the pinnacle of what the build-up process is. You start off, you know nothing. You come into this world, you learn how to breathe some air, you learn how to crawl, you learn how to walk, you learn how to eat, you learn all these different things. And all these things are designed to help build us up to the overall picture. Now, more often than not, we don't see the micro things. We don't even, I mean, at 38, I'm not thinking about, well, when I was a baby, I used to have to, pull myself up on things. Now I'm like, shoot, my knees hurt. I don't want to sit up on the couch. But there's this buildup that's taken place over the course of our lives. Now, we might see this in the negative world manifest in our diet, in the foods that we eat. When you consume over time, highly fatty foods, what do you get? You typically get clogged arteries. This is not something like you eat a French fry at McDonald's and your artery clogs, but you may think that because it may be the day that you ate a French fry at McDonald's and your arteries clogged and you had a heart attack. That is the negative buildup over the course of our life. That's that compounding effect. So it's not the one fry that you ate that caused the heart attack. It's the multiple fatty foods that you've eaten over time that have now gotten to that tipping point to where all you are is one fry away from clogging the system up. And sometimes even if you don't even eat another fatty food, the system is so clogged or so damaged that you don't have to do anything. You're just a couple of days away from having that clogged artery completely clogged with another platelet. I think that's what they call them in the arteries. But from the positive side, because I told you I'm going to play back and forth in this tonight. From the positive side, you might see the success of an athlete. So the athletics or the athleticism of an athlete. That is not something that, let's go with Michael Jordan. I really like Michael Jordan. I don't really care about all that other hype, but I like Michael Jordan as a basketball player. Michael Jordan, when he woke up from day one and when they named him, he was Michael Jordan. That's who he was. It wasn't like, oh, well, I got to now earn this name, Michael Jordan. No, that's who he was. However, when he woke up as Michael Jordan, there's a difference between who he woke up as and who he became and who he basically, to take from last night's conversation, who he wrote his destiny out to be. So from the positive buildup, he was out on the court, shooting the shots, running the drills, making sure his body was in shape and putting himself in peak position through building up, through exercise, through conditioning, through mental fortitude, putting himself in that place to where when it came time to be in a championship game, that buildup was so great that he typically tipped towards success. So that's another example from the positive side to realize that our lives, though we start off as ourselves, we wake up as ourselves, we step out of the bed as ourselves, overall, who we become is simply a buildup or a compounding of all the layers that are inserted or added along the way. Now, can you take some layers out? Yes, we're going to get into that because that is the next tool. The next tool is fix leaks and vent pressure. What do I mean by fix leaks and vent pressure? So fixing leaks. Fixing leaks is if you are dealing with something that is a positive buildup and it is going to help you achieve success or help you get to the direction or the goal that you're attempting to achieve, attempting to obtain. There we go. If it's going to get you to the goal that you're attempting to obtain, then yes, what you want to do is fix the leaks. And so I like to use the bucket analogy. If I have a bucket, I'm going to use my hustle candle here. If I have a bucket and that bucket has a hole right here, and I'm putting water in this bucket, the bucket will fill with water until it gets to the hole. However, if I'm not putting water in a manner that is fast enough, if I'm putting water in a manner that is the same or less than how the water is flowing out of the hole, the bucket will never fill beyond this hole. It will always just seep out the side, and the bucket will never fill. However, there's a book called, what is it? It's by Grant Cardone, called The 10X Rule. And he talks about using massive action. So even if there's a hole in this bucket, he's like, look, I don't care if there's a hole in this bucket. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dump an abundance of water in this bucket. So though it will be coming out the side, it'll also be overflowing the top. So you can take that approach, and that approach does take a lot of energy. It takes a lot of mental fortitude and determination and effort. However, you can also take the approach of simply fixing the leak. So if there's a leak here and I put my finger here, now the water, regardless of the pace that I'm filling this vessel, the water can come to the point where it gets to the top and then it overflows. So that is something that we want to do when we're dealing with positive buildup. We want to make sure that we're addressing the leaks so that that positivity can build at a good clip, and we don't have setbacks of negative leaks or holes in the system. However, when we're dealing with negative buildup, what we want to do is we want to vent the pressure. It's very similar to like if you're dealing with your drain. When I lived in California, living in the house where you have a female in the house who has long hair and she's like combing her hair or washing her hair in the shower, the drain would get backed up because hair comes out and it gets kind of caught up in the drain. Now, you can simplify or simply not have these hair clogs by either putting something over the drain proactively or making sure that you're regularly taking the hair off of the drain so that way it doesn't have an opportunity to build up and catch other things, which inevitably lead to a clog. You also see this in volcanoes, where a volcano will, instead of having a massive eruption, it will just vent some pressure and alleviate some of the pressure that's coming from the earth. And so from that perspective, what you want to do in the negative aspects when you're building up negative, I want to call these emotional volcanoes. When you're building up these emotional volcanoes by holding on to all these things that you feel like I can just bury them and bury them and bury them. Just like a landfill has a capacity, so do we have. We also have capacities when it comes to burying emotions. And at some point, if you're not venting to alleviate the steam or alleviate that pressure, it's going to lead to a violent eruption. So that is why tool number 3, I think, is really, really important and really powerful, is because from the aspect of building something, we want to make sure we're holding in as much of the content that's healthy for us, that's going to help us get to success. And we want to hold as much of that as possible. So fix those leaks. But for that negative stuff, that toxic stuff that we hold on to, that's really not for us, we have to get better. I don't want to say we have to. It's best to get better at addressing that and venting that so that you don't have that emotional eruption. So that's tool number 3. Tool number 4 is buildup can be transferred. Oh man, there's so many ways I can go with this, but I'm only going to go like 1 or 2 ways with it. The first thing being from the negative transfers that take place. Somebody's buildup, like my emotional buildup, can have an impact on my children. It can have an impact on my coworkers, my work environment, just me and the general public population. It can be transferred to other people and cause anxiety and other stressors for them. However, what I'm talking about from the negative standpoint also in this case is to take from a book of Jennifer Chambers, the trauma-based traditions that we pass on. And so it can be passed on intentionally and or unintentionally. So where we can look at a trauma-based tradition where, when I was a kid, I didn't get everything that I wanted. And so because I didn't get everything that I wanted, or I wasn't given anything because we didn't have the money to get them, I'm going to do the same thing for my kids, not give them the things that they want and make sure that they feel what it was like for me as a kid to grow up. That is that buildup of resentment, that buildup of not addressing that, hey, maybe your parents really weren't in the financial position to take care of you or provide you not just the necessities, but some of the extra things in life. Maybe they weren't in that position to do that. And if you're able to address by going back and venting some of that resentment and then really analyzing it to clear the clog completely or clear the buildup completely, then you don't transfer that trauma to your child saying, well, I didn't have nothing, so you ain't going to have nothing. No, it's not about what you had as a child and trying to give it to your child. It's about what do you feel is healthiest to give to your child and trying to give that. So that's from the negative scope, that it can it could be a trauma-based tradition that you are transferring, which is going to start a buildup in your children, which may lead to that same logic or resentment. Same path that you took becomes a path that your children take because of the fact that you've transferred that resentment to them, or you've transferred that buildup to them. From the positive side, however, you might see build-up transfer from a family reputation. So when I was a kid growing up, my father and I had the same name. And because we have the same name, whenever I would introduce myself, and I introduced myself first and last name, people would always say, "Oh, you're Bill's kid." And they would talk to me about my dad. "Oh my gosh, you know, your dad was a phenomenal athlete in school. I would see him catch the ball and shake 85 people on the field." I'm exaggerating, but I see him do all this different stuff, and he was amazing. "How are you at playing football? Do you play sports? What do you do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't really play sports, not in the school level. I just play when I feel like playing with friends, and then that's where I leave it at." And so that family reputation that my father had, which was a good reputation, and his friendliness and his charisma and his charm, those things were automatically transferred to me and built up within me, not necessarily from my father, but because his reputation preceded him and we had the same name. Now all of a sudden I'm getting this buildup of, wow, you know, this is why I feel like when I do play certain sports, I am very good at them because of the way I see them and the way I move. So there's two ways that buildup can be transferred. It can be transferred if it's negative. It can be transferred if it's positive, but it can be transferred through society's lens, or it can be transferred through your own lens and your own immediate interactions with other people. So that's tool number 4. Buildup can be transferred. And the 5th and final tool is we are either investing or increasing our cost. And really, that's what buildup is. From the positive side, I have a really good friend. He's actually the godfather of all my sons, who we always have these conversations. And one of the things that comes up very frequently is, "Hey, Ro, we got to remember to protect the investment. Protect the investment." And that is where, when we're building up and we're adding these layers that are healthy for us, we got to work to protect those layers and keep them from being contaminated by the negativity that is either around us or that we have yet to address in our own selves. So that is the first part of that, or the first side of that tool, is investing, protecting in that investment, protecting that buildup, making sure that you put a lid on it so that the wrong things don't get in there and build up with it. The second part of that is increasing our costs. Now, increasing our cost comes typically in the form of when we're dealing with negative buildup. And so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what it is, but I have a couple things here, a couple examples. One of the examples that I have is home ownership. When there is something that goes wrong in a home, if you own a home, or if you want to own a home one day, if there's something that goes wrong in the home and you're not the renter and you're the owner, now you have to address that issue. Because if you don't address that issue, what can happen is that issue can actually lead to other issues. Now, for me, actually, for my family, in the home that we own, when we moved there, I think it was in like year number 2, we actually had a root intrusion in our sewer line. And so what a root intrusion is your sewer line runs from your house, goes to the big dump in the bottom of the underground. And a root intrusion is when there's a root that goes into that pipe. And then what it does is it starts to cause a clog. Now, there's to make it simple, there's this area in your house called a clear out where the water will come out instead of running all the way back into your house. However, if that clogs, everything that is going down that drain is coming right back up into your house. And so what I mean by you're either investing or you're increasing the cost. The increasing of the cost is you're not addressing the buildup. And because you're not addressing the buildup, you go from having to fix a root intrusion to having your whole house having to be deal with water damage in your house from the water coming back in, whether it's through the toilets or the sink, dealing with, carpet damage and all these different things because of the fact that you are not willing to address the issue. And I remember when this issue happened, unfortunately, our house didn't back up. But when it happened, I was asked, hey, we can either go in and clear out that root, but if you know anything about roots, they're going to continue to grow back. So we can either go in and clear out that root, or what we can do is we can replace that whole line. And then that way the root intrusion will be over. And that's what we actually opted to do. Now, was it expensive to do? Yes, it was very expensive to do. But Was it worth doing? Yes, because if that root grows back in and causes another buildup that we don't catch in time and it backs up into our house, now not only do we have to fix the root intrusion, the line itself, which is the cost that we would have had to pay or more due to inflation, we now also have to fix the inside of the house. And so that's what I mean from that aspect of increasing the cost. The longer you allow things to build up in your life, the longer you allow the negative to build up in your life, the greater the obstacle it becomes. You know, a mountain is easy to take care of. It's easy to jump over while it's just a little nudge in the ground, and it's easy to run over while it's a hill. But once it becomes Everest, now you're going to need some special equipment to get up there, including oxygen. So that is the 5 tools. Really quick to go over them with you one more time. The first tool being buildup requires time. The second tool being realize that our entire life is one continuous compounding effect. The third tool being fix leaks and vent pressure. Fix the positive so that you're able to catch or capture more positive layers, and then vent the negative stuff that you definitely don't want there building up. The fourth tool being buildup can be transferred, remember, through trauma-based traditions, or it can be transferred through family reputations or other positive things that society may perceive about you or your family. And then the fifth tool is we're either investing in or increasing our costs. And that is just, again, make sure that you're addressing the negative buildup so that you're not increasing the cost to overcome it, and make sure that you're protecting that investment that you're making in the positive. So as with all intersations, I like to share a personal story that kind of got me thinking about this concept, kind of had me thinking about, you know, which way do I want to go? And as you know, on the first row, we like to be transparent. So tonight's concept or story is not the best light that I've ever been seen in, but I'm willing to share it because I think the lesson in and of itself was very powerful. So for me, as a very young child, the buildup that I didn't address, that was a negative buildup that I didn't vent until it got to an explosive, volcanic, emotional eruption, was that I had a lot of anger. I bottled a lot of anger. And some of that was from hurt. Some of that was from, you know, family situations in my household. But overall, at the end of the day, Billy Rowe, the who I am, decided to bottle that up and hold it inside. And then I'd run into these events where somebody would shake my soda can, and all of a sudden, boom, the lid pops off, and I would find myself throwing temper tantrums. And so for me, what I started doing with the temper tantrums was using temper tantrums to get my way. Now, it didn't really work that well in my house because my parents would whoop my butt. But outside of my house, it worked pretty well until I would get like kicked out of class, and then I had to have my mom come up here up to the school and then get a whooping for not being able to stay in class. But it was the method that I used to get my way. It was a very toxic method. It was a very, I think I'm just going to use a very toxic method that set me back in a lot of ways, that probably cut a couple of opportunities that I would have had I just been a student who used his brain and was smart. Well, I was a smart student, but had I just used my brain and my intelligence to get work done, I probably would have been a little bit further in school. So for me, the reason why this was a negative thing, it was a twofold negative situation. The first fold was that I would use the temper for everything. Like, I have a temper, this is going to get me my way. And even if it didn't, oh, well, normally it gets me my way, so I'll use the temper. That was the volcanic eruption. But on the other side, there's this positive bucket that I had the potential to be building. And that was healthy problem resolution. And that bucket, not only did it have a leak in it, I don't even think the bucket had a bottom, because every time I would use this temper, what I was saying is I'm not going to fill this positive, healthy resolution bucket. So what ended up happening over time as I approached, young adulthood, young manhood, and then all of a sudden become a man, where I'm not addressing these temper tantrums that I'm throwing, all of a sudden the temper tantrum comes to address it and to clear the clog now comes at an extremely high life event cost for me. Like, oh snap, these temper tantrums are not really helping me get what I want to get. They may help me temporarily. They may squash an argument. They may keep me from getting into confrontation, or they may bring me into confrontation. but they're not helping me to get what I want to get. What I really want, if I step back and allow all that pressure to vent and clear that clog, what I really want is to be able to handle and address problems in a healthy manner. And because there was no bottom in my bucket, there was no chance of me filling that bucket. It wasn't until I had to pay an extremely high personal cost of my own that I actually sat my butt down and said, let me see, I got to figure out another way because this is not working for me. It's hurting me. It's not helping me. So when I sat down and did that, all of a sudden now I got a bottom on my bucket and I can start filling it. Now, when I decided to start filling the bucket, let's say this is an 80-gallon bucket. When I first started filling that bucket, that one first drop, it didn't seem like it meant much. That second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth drop didn't seem like it meant much. But here's the thing, over time, as the bucket begins to fill, trust me, it's definitely not full all the way, I can tell you that. But as it begins to fill, now all of a sudden, I'm starting to have healthier problem resolution. And that is what I want. But in the same sense as this bucket is starting to fill, all of a sudden the pressure from temper tantrums is starting to dissipate. Now, do I still have times where emotionally I get irritated or maybe volatile? Absolutely. I don't think that that will ever completely go away just from human nature and stressors. But I have a host of tools in this, we're going to say 10 gallons of water that I have so far in this 80-gallon bucket. I have a host of tools that I can use in that. And I'm constantly trying to pour new tools, new patience, new understandings, new experiences into that bucket, because the more or the fuller that bucket can get, the more tools that I have in that bucket, the easier it is to keep my temper tantrum pipeline clear and flowing free. So again, it's something that I'm going to have to continue to work on, probably will continue working on for the rest of my life. But it was that high cost because I wasn't making the investment in the right bucket that temper tantrums cost me, that made me have to actually take a step back and say, okay, now that I've paid this cost, do I want to start building back up to have to pay that cost again and or more, because of the fact that you've already paid a certain cost. And so now it's probably going to go pressure beyond that and build up another additional cost. Or do I want to start making sure that I keep this channel and this pipe as free flowing as I possibly can and invest in the healthier things in life? And that's really what the buildup is about. It's about investing in the positive and healthier things for you in life and making sure that you're clearing out and uprooting and really venting the negative things out of your life so that they don't have the opportunity to build up and be successful. Your healthy things are what you want to have the opportunity to reach that pinnacle, that tipping point, and then you find yourself on the other side of success. And it feels like it's overnight, but I promise you there was a buildup. So other than that, I thank you guys for joining me tonight. I'm always happy when you guys hang out with me on the first row on the Wednesday Word. But I want you to know that we actually have some live content. I have to correct something. I said that we had the Keeping It Real Estate this previous Monday, but I forget it's actually the second and the fourth Monday of the month. So because it's the second and the fourth Monday of the month, it was not this previous Monday. It will be this upcoming Monday. And that topic will be, let me see. That topic will be, what inspections should you perform when buying a house? Speaking of build up. What inspections should you perform when buying a house? That will be at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with your man, Key Bryant, the realtor. Please make sure you tune into that. There's definitely some healthy tools and tidbits in there for if you want to become a homeowner and or renter or property owner in any way, shape, or form. These are tools and nuggets that are brought to you pretty much every other week on the first row, every second and fourth Monday on the first row. So make sure you tune into that. That's going to be Monday, May 13th. And again, at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But other than that, I thank you guys for tuning in tonight. If you're watching via the live, I appreciate you guys interacting in the chat. If you're watching via the replay, please leave us a comment. We will go ahead and respond to you up to 7 days after the video has been posted. After that, we move on to the next video. But other than that, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I look forward to seeing you next week on the first row. If you like this video, please share it. If you share this video, please like it. Again, we're always happy to engage with you. Until the next time. Oh, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit that share button, but subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified when we are live. Other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. One love, peace. and God bless.